Thank you very much, Casimir. It has been great. Well, all the 4 conferences have been great. No? Personally, I have heard, well, I was saying in my presentation that I was in a library, no, and I was looking for some papers, and you have mentioned, Pete, and Casimir have mentioned the William Schwartz paper, and the William Schwartz paper from 1970 was probably one of the main reasons why I changed or I moved from medicine to AI, no, because it was wonderful. No? Well, we have only some limited time now, and we will have some questions, some comments, no, for a round table now, also with members of the academy, if you want to make questions, no? And then we will pass the floor. We will pass the floor to our 4 members from the USA, no, if they want to answer. No? Do you want? Yeah. Please.
Thank you very much. I have 3 questions that concern very much to me, or 3 comments that I want to say. First is if you are aware of the great impact in the social about ChatGPT. Oh, so sorry. So sorry. So I start again. I have 3 questions or 3 comments that really concern to me. First is everybody has the success of the ChatGPT. Everybody has now ChatGPT in their smartphones, computer, Google. That means in the daily work, not in the work, in the day use, just to cook, just to go to holidays, people use ChatGPT and use AI without any concern about limitations, about the problems that really has. So that means, I really know, that the patient, before going to doctor, consult ChatGPT. And it's quite usual to say now, oh, doctor, you are right, because ChatGPT has the same opinion. And I think it's very dangerous, really dangerous in that sense. That's my first concern. My students also trust more in ChatGPT than in their teachers, on their professors. That, again, is very dangerous. Second concern, what about the unexpected thing that ChatGPT usually found? I mean, I am a medical physicist, and we use in RANME some anthropomorphic phantoms. That means, it's a test, just, we use the phantom. We obviously know perfectly what's inside the phantom, but ChatGPT, or the IA, no, not ChatGPT, sorry, the IA, the specific for MRA, found some organs that obviously are not inside. So that's, again, the unexpected, the unlikely thing that could happen. My third concern is, again, about the failure. I mean, the biased the information. Usually, the 99% of the publications for doctor and PubMed are success, are new treatments, good treatments, diagnostics, but few of us really write the failures. That means ChatGPT, or the IA, sorry, thinks that obviously the 99% are succeed, but it's not true. We have here found that maybe 30% of the mistakes. So I think we have to encourage first that training and culture to the society, then to encourage people to publish their failures, just to that the ChatGPT knows really to feed with a lot of mistakes. And third, culture, training. I mean, the ministry or the community said to say population that there is a limitation in IA. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if the invited speakers are still here, because we don't We cannot see the screen. I don't know if the connection is lost.
No, they are here.
They are here?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, sorry. No, I am watching you. No? I don't know if you want to answer, some of you want to answer this question from a member of the Academy.
Well, the unexpected and the unexplained is one of the main reasons why novelty means that true prediction is philosophically impossible, okay, and practically impossible, but we try it anyway. We try to do it. We try to at least narrow the confidence bounds by which our awareness of how the past informs the present and the future can help us. And so it's part of science. We develop new experiments. We think differently. We handle things differently thanks to having our wonderful computers, which allow us to juggle ideas and data in much more flexible ways. But we shouldn't forget that all of it is really more guessing than knowing most of the time. And that's one of the problems. We often pride ourselves on thinking that we know more than we really do, when there's really what is happening is that we're being very creative in our juggling of things, and AI and these methods give us a very powerful way of juggling more creatively than before, as long as we are also critical and not necessarily believing what we have and willing to be critical. If we can do that, we are good scientists at it, as well as good people.
So I was once talking to my students about the idea that we should have a journal of negative results.
Mm-hmm.
And they, of course, laughed at me because they said, look, there are so many more negative results than positive results that there's no way to publish all of them. But I think your question about errors made by large language models falls into that category. There are a lot of them, and we don't have the bandwidth. So what we have to do is do studies that do this in a systematic manner. But the problem is that it's very funny to me to study an engineered artifact as if it were a natural phenomenon. You know, if you're studying biochemistry, nobody designed it, and so it's natural to study it as a natural phenomenon, or cosmology, or fundamental physics, or something like that. But these are engineered artifacts. And so we ought to be able to do a better job, as I suggested in that Minsky and Papert book on perceptrons, of actually looking at the design of the system and saying, what is it that exactly accounts for its behavior, both correct and incorrect?
And yet, Pete, we know that the developers of the large language models are often amazed at their behavior themselves, even though they presumably know how they work. So we're into a whole new kind of area where a man-made entity isn't really understood well because of its complexity and size and the amount of information it has access to and how quickly it can come up with answers. It's not really amenable to full understanding in some sense. I hear this by so many of the developers from these companies that have these LLMs out there now on the market or just being made freely available. And so we're all, I think being a doubter is something you can be taught. and that part of what we as professors and so forth with our students need to do is try to make sure that they have that kind of caution in the use of these kinds of tools. And that's part of that argument for why the human being with the machine is better than the machine alone, or the human being with the machine is better than the human being alone. I think that's a simplistic notion, needs to be kind of deep-seated in the students that we teach, and that they take that to heart, and they consider in the way in which they actually make use of these kinds of amazing new tools.
Yeah,
I'd like to add, I agree with Ted's comment that even the developers are amazed, but actually the development of a lot of the AI tools that we now have are a combination of kind of a level at which a platform was developed, and which has kind of a general model of how it reinforces various weights and gets feedback and so on. And then there are application-focused development, and I think we're amazed at both levels and sometimes how it behaves, but the actual tweaking and fine-tuning has to be done at that second level, where we're looking at various foci or applications and trying to tune it. And I think we're all actually operating in a sense as users, rather than, we used to be developers and we provide the system and then there'd be a testing process. But I think we're all users in terms of how we respond, and tweak and generate prompts. So it's a different kind of development than we've ever done before.
I find it somewhat uncomfortable to think of myself as simply a user. You're really an experimenter. And this kind of brings you up to the challenge of being creative and coming up with entirely new ways of designing experiments when you are conscious that the machine is not conscious, but can produce these exceedingly complex, interesting, combinatorial mixes of probabilistic, strange new ways of combining things. So it's the combinatorial mix, but the combinations that then match some sort of reality out there when you're talking about biology and medicine. It has to tie into what our evolutionary history has led us to as organisms, right? And our interactions with them. And people have done it brilliantly in being able to come up with ways of controlling disease through instrumentations and through basically live organisms that play games with other live organisms, which is in some sense what happens with us and with our use of vaccines, among other things, right? Which is currently a very interesting subject of debate. It all ties to our better understanding of the immune system, which is often considered to be another sense as a system of a whole. So there's lots of interesting, exciting things to be done, but let's not consider ourselves as just as users.
Okay, I'm sure that Professor Martí has some question or comment about this wonderful session and the comments of the speakers.
Yeah, well, first, just to say thanks, no? We learned so much, not only today, all over these years, no? Following you in some way. AI is changing the way we are performing medicine, and that's based on the constructions we can do on the shoulders of the giants, no? And you are the giants of AI. I was just willing to mention the extremely complex problem we do have in our hands, no? Medicine is not a simple thing. There is a huge amount of exposures that will change how biology and physiology is working, and we have to thank maybe AI that we can, through all that reasoning, reduce the number of relevant inputs to those that are explainable and will give us some help on the process of, at the end, treating patients for their best, no? I do think that we do not want to be perfect. I mean, we cannot be perfect, but it's much better to be better every week or every month, not to improve the way we perform this medicine. And I was just willing to highlight that in this world of evidence and validation that was mentioned by you as the real impact of the AI developments, the ground truth is also changing. There was a writer in Spanish language that said that when we do have the right answers, then the questions change. And in medicine, sometimes that's the way. I mean, when we have the right answer to a specific trouble, then because of technology, improvements, new knowledge, then the trouble is different. And we have to retrain and reuse and be exposed to this continuous improvement that we also learn from you. And I was just willing to mention that also I did love hearing from you the causality way of thinking, contrafactual reasoning, which in some way is what we do think will be the basics of this continuous improvement to be every week and every month better in the way we perform medicine. Just willing to say thanks a lot for all your efforts. And those were my comments.
Okay, thank you very much, and I will pass the floor to Alejandro Pazos.
Okay, thank you very much. I agree with Dr. Martí, and the pioneer speakers was wonderful this session. And just it's next to 9 o'clock, it's too late. And just to say that artificial intelligence is no more, no less than a very powerful tool to increase the cognitive capacity of the professionals, in this case, professionals of the healthcare. So the danger is not the tool. The danger is the use, than the professional use, the artificial intelligence. No more.
Yep. Okay. I would like to make now one question. Well, you have been working in this area for almost 60 years, and then you have seen a lot of failures, errors, and successes, no? But what do you think about today, for instance, with the use of generative AI? Which are for you maybe the lessons that you learned that are forgotten today in AI, in medicine? A volunteer?
Hard question. I have one comment. I've been very concerned about that whole issue of transparency throughout my career, of believing in a system is very dependent upon understanding the rationale for the guidance that it's offering. Now, you may argue that the LLMs have introduced a whole new way of suddenly getting explanations or defenses, but they don't follow a line of reasoning when they're actually solving the problem. That instead, the line of reasoning comes out when you ask them why, and they try to justify post hoc what's gone on. And it seems to me that one of the big issues is really how do we get true insight that allows us to judge the credibility of what we're being told by these kinds of tools. Now, maybe this will change more over time. I'm often pleased to see the kind of defense that a LLM will offer for something it's been analyzing after I've asked a question. But sometimes it seems like nonsense. Now, we can argue that maybe the nonsense will be less and less frequent over time. And I do want to stress that I think we're in the middle of a process. My gosh, we've only had LLMs for a few years, and deep learning is only a decade old. So where will we be 10, 15, 20 years from now? What will we be teaching our students, future physicians? And to what extent will they be being taught how to carefully and prudently use the very tools that have become a necessity for them?
Yeah, I would echo the same thoughts. So the problem with an LLM is the way it's actually giving you an answer is by applying this enormously gigantic model to the previous words that it has seen in your query and in its previous answers. And explaining that doesn't give me any insight into why it's telling me what it's telling me. If I then turn to it and say, well, please explain yourself, it will give an explanation, but there's absolutely no reason to believe that explanation is what it actually did, because in fact, it's probably not what it did.
Right.
And so I think what we're looking for, or at least what I'm looking for, is some better abstractions of the learning mechanism and the generative mechanism in these LLMs that allows us to understand what they're doing in a human way. And people are doing that. So there are experiments where you can look at the representation in intermediate parts of the system and say, can we correlate that with things that people believe or that people think are happening in such a system? For example, one of my most recent doctoral students was doing experiments where she was assuming that when you ask a question, the first dozen or 24 layers of this deep neural network are trying to figure out what the question is about, and that the later aspects of it, the later layers of the network, are trying to figure out what the answer should be. And so she was playing experiments on what if you take the representation at one level and insert it into a different level and do experiments like that. I don't think she had the right answer, but those are the kinds of experiments from which we may learn something about what the internal operations of these systems are like.
I agree with Pete very much on that one, but I think you need to go in language back to the old Latin saying res non verba, which means how do you actually come up with new ideas through experimentation and the re-engineering of what we have in our systems. So I was pleased to see, I don't know if you've seen the YouTube show when the presentation of the Faraday Prize, where the honoree pointed out that probably the most exciting new developments in AI will be when we actually have robots trying out different degrees of automation, of actually doing experiments robotically and working, which suggests for medical practice something that's a very tough ethical issue. How do you train surgeons with new equipment, with robotic equipment? And it's happening now. So there are some interesting challenges there to be considered at the boundary between the way we talk about things and we explain things and how we actually act and produce things and then find out which work and which don't. An interesting, brave new world, somewhat Star Wars-like.
So you have to invite us back in 10 years to see if we understand these things better.
That's a good one.
We will do it. Well, it is quite late now. It is past 9, no, here, 4 p.m. there, no? And well, thank you very much. I want to thank you, for this wonderful session. It has been recorded, and I am sure, well, many people told me from different countries know that they will have sessions commenting this, your talks, and I'm sure that this video will be helpful for many people in the coming years, particularly in people, for people working in the areas of medical informatics and AI in medicine. Sorry. And then, well, just to thank you, and well, I hope to see you maybe in a near conference. No? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we will have the closing session. Please, Dr. Nuria Ruiz, you can come here. Well, I will usually come, please. I will make some comments because usually in these sessions we make some final conclusions, no? And then I have some final conclusions also coming from the speakers, no? Which is I have here several. No? For instance, development of intelligent and knowledge-based tools for health and healthcare has been pursued for more than 60 years. Taken together and augmented by newer AI tools, we are heading to an optimistic future of a co-intelligent, interconnected health system. Builders of AI systems need to understand that transparency through explanation is crucial in building trust. There is an ongoing collaborative role for physicians and their expertise in designing and implementing medical AI systems to assure a suitable emphasis on usability, workflow, patient variability, and avoidance of bias. And finally, AI promises a substantial transformation in medicine, improving diagnostic methods, therapies, prevention, and research. It supports clinical confidence, reduces routine tasks, and helps make healthcare more human-centered. It will only be a matter of time before this vision is realized. Okay, and now we will have, ahora tenemos a la doctora Nuria Ruiz, ¿no? En la presentación final, ¿no? Cuando quiera.
Muchas gracias. Bueno, buenas tardes. Es un verdadero honor para mí participar en la clausura de esta sesión científica extraordinaria organizada por la Real Academia Nacional de Medicina de España.
Está, Ricardo.
¿Se me oye?
Está.
Y que es una sesión pues, en torno a un asunto que ya no solamente es un vector de innovación, sino un debate profundo, la inteligencia artificial aplicada a la medicina. Quiero comenzar expresando mi más sincero agradecimiento, en primer lugar, a la presidencia de esta Real Academia, al profesor Víctor Maojo por su impulso y coordinación académica y a la Fundación Bamberg por su compromiso con el diálogo entre conocimiento, clínica e innovación. Gracias también a todas las personas que han participado a lo largo de la tarde y a quienes han seguido la sesión de manera presencial y online, contribuyendo a un intercambio que, como se ha evidenciado hoy, solo puede ser fecundo cuando se sostiene en el rigor, en la experiencia y en la responsabilidad. Cerrar una jornada como esta no consiste solamente en recapitular lo obvio ni en repetir lo ya dicho, consiste más bien en capturar lo esencial, qué se ha puesto de manifiesto, qué consensos se intuyen, qué preguntas quedan abiertas y, sobre todo, qué responsabilidad compartimos a partir de aquí. Y si tuviera que resumir el espíritu que ha atravesado esta sesión, diría que hoy se ha defendido una idea tan sencilla como exigente. La inteligencia artificial en medicina solo merece ese nombre si se traduce en mejor medicina, porque si algo nos enseña la historia de la inteligencia artificial en medicina es que la innovación solo genera valor cuando se apoya en el conocimiento científico, en la experiencia clínica y en una reflexión crítica sobre sus límites. Nos encontramos en este momento en una etapa de desarrollo tecnológico impulsada por la IA generativa con una capacidad de impacto sin precedentes. Precisamente por ello, resulta más necesario que nunca detenerse, analizar y aprender de lo ya recorrido, porque la inteligencia artificial, en medicina es el resultado de décadas de investigación en sistemas expertos, ayuda a la decisión clínica, representación del conocimiento y aprendizaje automático. Precisamente la singularidad del momento actual no es tanto conceptual como la escala, la velocidad y la accesibilidad, lo que amplifica tanto las oportunidades como los riesgos. Permítanme articular este cierre en 4 mensajes, con el tono institucional que requiere una academia, pero también con la vocación práctica que exige un sistema sanitario real. La primera conclusión es inequívoca. La IA sanitaria no puede medirse por su sofisticación, sino por su valor clínico, demostrable. Y ese valor no se decreta, se evalúa, se compara, se valida, se monitoriza. A lo largo de la jornada se han señalado con claridad las condiciones que permiten que una herramienta pase de potencial a utilidad. Y ese es el estándar que debemos normalizar. El segundo mensaje ha sido especialmente relevante y me gustaría subrayarlo. La IA no sustituye al juicio clínico. Su lugar legítimo es el de apoyo, complemento y ampliación de capacidades humanas, siempre bajo supervisión profesional. Como médica, me interesa subrayar especialmente este punto. La inteligencia artificial solo tiene sentido en la medida en la que refuerza el razonamiento clínico, respeta la incertidumbre inherente a la medicina y se integra de forma coherente en la toma de decisiones del profesional, no cuando pretende reemplazarla. En ese marco, la inteligencia artificial puede ser una gran aliada si se integra con humildad y con método, como segunda lectura, como ayuda a detectar patrones, como soporte para ordenar información o reducir carga administrativa. Y aquí aparece una enseñanza que esta academia y esta jornada han reforzado. El progreso sanitario no consiste en reemplazar lo humano, sino en liberar lo humano, liberar tiempo para dedicar al paciente y liberar tiempo de atención. La visión que queremos transmitir se refleja de manera clara en el Plan Estratégico de Salud Digital de la Comunidad de Madrid para el periodo 2026-2028, donde la inteligencia artificial y el Big Data se incorporan como una línea estratégica específica, pero siempre subordinada a condiciones previas esenciales habilitadoras: calidad y gobernanza del dato, integración en los sistemas de información, infraestructuras adecuadas, seguridad, estandarización. Pero sobre todo, el éxito de esa transformación depende de que los profesionales sanitarios adopten y hagan suyas estas herramientas. Desde un punto de vista académico, estamos priorizando casos de uso acotados, evaluables y clínicamente plausibles. Un ámbito especialmente relevante es el de la radiología y la imagen médica, donde la IA se está utilizando como apoyo al diagnóstico y no como sustituto del especialista. Permítame ilustrarlo con algunos ejemplos concretos que estamos desarrollando ya en la Comunidad de Madrid. En mamografía digital, por ejemplo, se están aplicando sistemas de ayuda orientados a la detección asistida de anomalías sospechosas con el objetivo de mejorar la sensibilidad y reducir la variabilidad en la interpretación, siempre integrados en el flujo habitual de trabajo del radiólogo y bajo su criterio clínico. En el ámbito de la imagen torácica, se emplean herramientas de inteligencia artificial tanto en radiografías de tórax como en estudios de TAC que permiten identificar patrones sugestivos de patología pulmonar y priorizar estudios que requieren revisión preferente, especialmente en contextos de alta carga asistencial. Otro ejemplo relevante es el uso de la IA en resonancia magnética de próstata, donde los sistemas de apoyo contribuyen a mejorar la precisión diagnóstica y a reducir la variabilidad interobservador en la detención de cáncer de próstata. Junto a la imagen médica, estamos aplicando también la inteligencia artificial en otros ámbitos diagnósticos, como la digitalización y el análisis de muestras de anatomía patológica o la interpretación de grandes volúmenes de datos clínicos, siempre bajo criterios de validación, monitorización y uso responsable. Otro ámbito de especial interés es la interacción entre el profesional y los sistemas de información clínica, tecnologías de procesamiento del lenguaje natural, como la transcripción de voz a texto integrada en la historia clínica, no modifican el acto médico, pero sí pueden reducir de forma significativa la carga cognitiva y administrativa del profesional. Desde una perspectiva académica, esas aplicaciones son relevantes porque mejoran la eficiencia sin interferir en el juicio clínico. Asimismo, la inteligencia artificial se aplica en procesos organizativos y de relación con el ciudadano, automatización de citaciones, recordatorios o cribados, que aunque menos visibles desde un punto de vista científico, inciden de forma real en la experiencia del paciente y en el funcionamiento global del sistema sanitario. La tercera conclusión es que en sanidad la inteligencia artificial solo es aceptable si es responsable. Y la responsabilidad en este ámbito concreto no es una declaración, es una arquitectura. Gobierno del dato, trazabilidad, auditoría, ciberseguridad, explicabilidad en lo necesario y claridad de responsabilidades. Y esto significa, en primer lugar, alineación estricta con el marco regulatorio europeo y nacional, protección de datos, derechos digitales, Reglamento Europeo de Inteligencia Artificial, directivas de ciberseguridad como la NIS2, y no como un freno a la innovación, sino como una garantía de confianza. Significa también claridad en la gobernanza y en las responsabilidades. En sanidad, la ciberseguridad y la gestión del riesgo no son delegables ni abstractas, requieren liderazgo, supervisión y compromiso de las organizaciones sanitarias. Y significa, por supuesto, ética, transparencia y explicabilidad. La sesión de hoy ha insistido con razón en que la IA clínica no puede ser una caja negra en el corazón de la toma de decisiones, debe ser comprensible, debe ser evaluable, auditable y, sobre todo, corregible cuando la realidad demuestra límites o algún sesgo. Y también permítanme añadir una idea. En salud, la confianza no es un intangible decorativo, es una infraestructura. La confianza sostiene la adherencia, la continuidad asistencial, la seguridad del paciente y el pacto ético que une a los profesionales y a la ciudadanía. Por eso la regulación y la seguridad no son un freno a la innovación, son el lenguaje de la confianza. Y la cuarta conclusión es quizá la más importante a medio plazo. La introducción de la IA en la práctica clínica también es un cambio cultural, requiere capacitación, comprensión de límites y sesgos y una nueva manera de relacionarse con los sistemas de información. La clave del éxito en la transformación digital sanitaria reside en contar con profesionales formados, que comprendan el funcionamiento, los datos, sepan interpretar sus resultados y comunicar sus implicaciones al paciente, manteniendo siempre, por supuesto, su responsabilidad clínica. Desde la Comunidad de Madrid compartimos plenamente este marco, evidencia, responsabilidad, integración y formación, y lo traducimos en una convicción institucional. La inteligencia artificial no es un fin en sí mismo, sino un instrumento al servicio de un sistema sanitario más eficaz, más seguro y más humano. Y, de hecho, una idea apareció de manera transversal en la jornada, y me gustaría hacerla propia. La inteligencia artificial funciona cuando es invisible en el sentido correcto, cuando no invade el acto médico, sino que lo respalda, cuando reduce la fricción, cuando ordena, cuando ayuda a priorizar y cuando mejora sin desplazar. Y aquí me permito una advertencia que nace de la experiencia compartida hoy. El riesgo del momento actual no es que la inteligencia artificial no esté a la altura de sus promesas. El riesgo es que, fascinados por la velocidad, confundamos velocidad con progreso. El progreso en sanidad exige método, exige evaluación, exige prudencia, exige gobernanza y exige, por encima de todo, que el paciente, la persona, siga siendo el centro. Y precisamente por eso el papel de las academias es irreemplazable. Esta jornada nos recuerda que una academia no es solo un lugar de prestigio, es un lugar de responsabilidad, porque es el espacio donde la innovación se somete a contraste, donde el entusiasmo se equilibra con evidencia, donde se preserva la perspectiva histórica y donde se elevan estándares que luego se convierten en práctica. Hoy aquí se ha hecho algo muy importante. Se ha colocado la inteligencia artificial médica no como un espectáculo tecnológico, sino como un fenómeno clínico y científico que debe responder ante la seguridad del paciente, ante la ética y ante la realidad asistencial. Y cerramos esta sesión con más conocimiento, sí, pero sobre todo con una responsabilidad renovada, la de construir una inteligencia artificial en salud científicamente fundada, clínicamente útil y socialmente responsable. Y esa tarea no corresponde a un solo actor, exige alianza. Academias, universidades, profesionales, gestores, industria, reguladores y administraciones públicas. No dejemos que este debate de hoy se quede en una brillante jornada académica, convirtámoslos en una agenda de trabajo, en criterios compartidos, en estándares de formación y gobernanza del dato, en buenas prácticas de integración clínica, en cultura profesional y en confianza ciudadana. Hagamos que la inteligencia artificial esté a la altura de esa confianza. Hagamos que la innovación no solo sea más rápida, sino más justa, no solo más potente, sino más segura, y no solo más tecnológica, sino más humana. Y que cuando miremos atrás podamos decir que en este tiempo de aceleración elegimos el camino más difícil y correcto, el del rigor, el de la responsabilidad y el del cuidado. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias. No se vayan, no se vayan. Un momento. Bueno, queremos dar las gracias aquí a la doctora Nuria Ruiz, directora general de Salud Digital de la Comunidad de Madrid, y tenemos un pequeño recuerdo para usted, para los invitados, la medalla de la Academia. También
muchísimas gracias.
Con la conmemoración de este día, ¿no?
Muchísimas gracias. Para mí este es un acto muy especial. Yo como médico estaré aquí con vosotros en la Real Academia de Medicina, os aseguro que me emociona, y sobre todo porque estoy viendo aquí a muchos de mis profesores del Hospital Clínico de hace ya unos años y de verdad estoy muy agradecida.
Un paso para acá.
Sí.
Vuelvo para la silla. Bueno, son las 9:20 casi, ¿no? Entonces, finalizamos el acto ya. Muchísimas gracias a todos por estar aquí. Y también, thank you very much for all the people in all the world that have been here. I don't know if they are still here, no, but probably with the video they will check what we are saying in the final words, no? Okay, thank you.